Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about fermenting because fermenting is one of the easiest, cheapest, and healthiest ways to preserve your food. It's probably one of the oldest methods. You need almost nothing to do this. All you really need is a mason jar, whatever vegetable you're going to be fermenting, some salt, and really you can do it. Now I'm going to show you the things that will make it easy in the process to go through it, and then in upcoming videos I'll show you step by step a few different recipes. But once you get the general idea, then you really get it, because you'll be doing pretty much the same thing for any vegetable. So it's really easy. One of the great things about fermenting is that it creates a good, healthy, natural probiotic. It's actually the same probiotic that you buy in those very expensive probiotic tablets or pills that you get. Only those, they brag that they can give you, a couple billion probiotics per pill that you're taking once a day, whereas your homemade fermented foods will give you a couple trillion of the exact same probiotic with every bite. So that's good for you. It's good to do for your pets. It's good for your gut health. And one of the things that research has shown is that probiotics don't really stay in your system. You have to constantly re-inoculate yourself with them. Our ancestors did that by regularly eating fermented foods, and we just don't eat them. So this is good to learn. It's a good way to preserve your food. It's a good way to increase your health, and it's just fun to do. Now, this will actually increase the vitamin level in your food. When you cook food, heat breaks down vitamins, especially things like vitamin C that are very sensitive to heat. But when you ferment, because of the process of the bacteria and the microbes, the way they work, they actually increase the nutrients, especially vitamin C. In fact, sauerkraut is one of the highest concentrations of vitamin C that you can get, and it's full of these good, healthy probiotics. So if you start to get sick, go get you a couple of bites of actual, real fermented sauerkraut. Now, that's another thing. In the store, sometimes you buy these things and they're actually pickled. So let's talk about the difference there. Pickling and fermenting, they may taste very similar in the end, but they're two totally different processes. When you're pickling something, you're adding a vinegar and acid to it to prevent microbes from growing in it. When you're fermenting, you're actually encouraging the good microbes who then fight off all of the bad microbes. And it'll give you a soury, tangy taste in the end, but it's two totally separate processes. When you're pickling, you can do it quick. So when people, grow, 100 pounds of cucumbers, they're going to usually pickle and not ferment, because you can just put them all in a bunch of jars, put some vinegar in it, and, do the pickling process, put it on a shelf and forget about it, and you can do a whole lot at one time. When you're fermenting, it's better to do in small batches, because you're going to have to monitor those jars for gases. So you typically will do, a jar at a time as you need, and just put it in the fridge and eat it throughout the year. And whenever you're out, you'll make another one, because it only takes a few days to start the process and to make it. So there's different purposes and different reasons that you would use them, but fermenting and pickling are two different things. And we can show you how to pickle in some other videos. In fact, we've done pickled eggs, so you can see the process. But with fermenting, you're not using vinegar, you're actually just using salt and water, which again is why it's so inexpensive and so easy and anyone can do it. So you're going to have salt and water. You're going to need a jar. If you use a mason jar, you're going to have to burp it, because as it begins to ferment, it's going to create gases, and you have to burp it. Let the gases out once a day so that your jar doesn't build up pressure and explode. In the olden days, they often used these kinds of jars, and that's where you get the idea of burping it. See, it just opens like it's burping, and then you close it again. And that's just to let the fermenting gases escape, which is actually where burping comes from, in your stomach. So, same thing. Nowadays, actually, though, you can buy these lids, and they are self-venting. So there's a little pressure thing here that will allow it to burp itself, so you could just put the lid on it and forget it. I hear people often saying that, oh, they're great for beginners. Man, forget that. If it makes your life easier, just use it. I kind of had that prideful mentality when they first started with the electric pressure canners, and I was like, oh, that's like the easy bake oven of pressure canning. And then I got one to try it out, and I was like, you know what? If I can put some leftovers in here, push a few buttons, and go to bed and wake up to perfectly pressure canned quarks, that makes my life easier. So, forget pride. Yeah, it's good to know how to do it the old-fashioned way. And if you have to go and burp that jar every single day, then, learn how to do it. That's amazing. But these lids are super cheap, so I do recommend getting them because, like, for me, we're very busy and maybe we'll be gone for a couple of days and I don't want to have to stop the process. I can just leave this lid on it and it will do it automatically. So there's nothing, electrical or gadgety about it. It's just a little pressure valve. Another thing I do like about these lids too is that there's a little counter on it, so each day you can move it and know exactly how many days you've been fermenting. Just a little thing that makes it very easy. But you don't need it. You can just use a regular mason jar lid and that will work. You will also need something to weight it down because you don't want anything floating up above your brine. If that happens, it can grow mold. So in the old days, they used a stone. You can do that. Or you can get these little glass pucks that go right in the jar. They fit into a wide mouth mason jar. They go right in the jar and they help to hold everything down. So that's another little gadget that is really inexpensive and does help. But again, you don't need it. You can use anything to weight it down. And a kitchen scale helps. You can eyeball it, and I'm going to give you some formulas for that in each recipe. I'll give you kind of the eyeballed formula. But to do it properly, the way you create your brine, you're preserving with salt and water. And so your brine is going to typically be a 2% brine, which means that you put your jar on your scale and you zero it out. And then you fill your jar with your contents, with the water, with everything you're going to do. And then you figure that out in grams. And then you figure 2% of that. So if it's 100 grams, you put 2 grams of salt in it. The way you figure that out mathematically is that however many grams, like for example, if it's 100 grams, you times that times 0.02. And that number that you get will be the amount of salt in grams that you need to add to your solution. Now, there are things online that will tell you, so many tablespoons of salt per so many cups of water. You can use those. They tend to err on the side of caution and give you a brine that's much saltier than what you actually need. So I like to do the scale because it gives you the least amount of salt. And you can add more salt for taste if you like it that way. But for it to be safe, you need at least a 2% salt solution. Some things can be dry salted, which means you're not going to add water to it. It's going to make its own water, like sauerkraut. Cabbage is very watery. It has a lot of water in it. So you're just going to actually be adding the salt to it, and then you're going to let it sit for a while, and it's going to make its own juices. So we'll show you how to do that in a separate video whenever we make some sauerkraut, or something that I have invented that I'm calling Cajun kraut because it's a little Cajun flavory in the sauerkraut. And it's so good. You're going to want to try it. It's coming soon. Stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe, all those things. Click the bell. Make sure that you're here for whenever that comes out. Now, one thing that will come up for people when they first start fermenting is that something can grow on the top of the jar, and they'll freak out and think, oh no, it's mold. But it's usually a type of yeast, which is absolutely fine. It's kind of the same process as when you're making homemade yogurt or homemade sourdough. And so it makes this yeast that's absolutely fine. Some people skim it off, some just stir it in. It's not a problem. It's part of the microbes. It's part of the healthy microbes. It's good for you. It's okay. But you do have to watch if anything comes up above the brine that you don't actually get mold, because if there's mold on it, then you don't want it. But if you have a good healthy microbe in there, then it's going to outgrow the mold and prevent it from happening. Once you have fermented vegetables, they're good in a cellar or in the fridge for up to a year. So it is a very good food preservation method to extend your harvest. But I think more it's just fun to do. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. You can make drinks, you can make vegetables, you can make pickles. Pickles probably my favorite. A lot of people like sauerkraut. But for me, I think the health benefits are going to outweigh all of the other reasons that you're going to want to start fermenting. Plus, it's just so easy and so fun. Get the kids to help you do it. They'll love it, and it'll get them started on wanting to do these food preservation projects as they get older. So let's start learning how to ferment. I'm going to show you a couple of recipes in the upcoming videos, so make sure you follow.